Stressing the importance of an alliance, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo reaffirming the United States' commitment to Saudi Arabia, saying, quote, "This mutually beneficial relationship to create stability in the Middle East and to assist the United States in executing things that keep the American people safe is very important. I'm convinced that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia will be a great ally in doing so." Joining us now to discuss is Anthony Tata, retired Brigadier General and author of the book Dark Winter. What do you think about that statement? What are your thoughts?
Well, Melissa, what I think is that there was a lot of work to do in Saudi Arabia after the Khashoggi affair, and Secretary of State Pompeo is over there sort of shoring up relations to make sure that we communicate our human rights values, as well as the importance of Saudi Arabia to the United States in that region with respect to Iranian hegemony or their drive for hegemony, or the war in Yemen, and the need to help protect Israel. All of those things come into play when we're talking about Saudi Arabia.
The other side always counters, though, when you hear, in the middle of the statement, when they said in the safety of the American people, they always counter with 9/11 and, the hijackers that were from Saudi Arabia. What is your response to that when that's the point that's brought up?
Well, Al-Qaeda was and is a splinter cell of this far-right Islamic, religion, and they trained in Karnak farms in Afghanistan, and they are not symbolic of the vast majority of the Saudi Arabian people, and they are terrorists that were terrorists that attacked our country. And so that's my response, is that they are two different entities. Al-Qaeda and the terrorists that attacked our country and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia are two different entities. And these terrorists mostly did come from Saudi Arabia, and we have issues there that we need to continue to press them on. However, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is an ally, and the much larger picture is that we have to check Iran and their drive for a land bridge into Syria and getting into the Mediterranean and pressure Israel.
I also want to get your take on the report from the Wall Street Journal that the White House asked the Pentagon for plans to strike Iran. This had to do with an attack on the embassy that fell short. That's the report. And the president was asking for his options in terms of this attack or maybe one in the future. Does that seem dangerous or outrageous to you, or what's your take?
Oh, I think it's perfectly within the reason of the commander-in-chief to look for options when you have a very hostile power in Iran attacking the government square in Baghdad, which includes U.S. and other allies, when you have them setting up shop with Hezbollah in Venezuela to threaten the our hemisphere, when you have them trying to get into Syria and create that land bridge. I think any option should be on the table with respect to Iran, because they are a hostile force, and they have said that they want to destroy America and they want to destroy Israel. So all the elements of power need to be at play here, whether it's diplomatic, information, military, economic, and all of those need to be synchronized. And I believe that was really the key to Secretary Pompeo's trip over there, was to make sure that everything was square with Saudi Arabia so that we could counter Iranian influence.
Yeah. And where do you think we are on that front?
Well, I think we're shoring up the relations after the Khashoggi incident and making sure that we put a flag in the ground on our human rights values as a nation. And Secretary Pompeo was very clear about that he had very candid conversations with Mohammed bin Salman, and they're moving forward, as allies should do. And he said that everyone associated with that should be held accountable, and I expect them to be. And as we move forward, we need Saudi Arabia to help us keep the flow of oil out of the Persian Gulf and be able to check Iran, as Iran is feeling its oats here and trying to expand in that region.
Thank you, General Tata. Always a pleasure. Thank you.